every major nation except the US and Russia are engaged in border conflicts, except Russia-Ukraine thing. But the US is alone the dominant player in both the American continent. How did the US manage to do this? Except for a few nations, all are under US vassalhood. Doesn't this give the US a huge leverage over any other major global power or any other major power in the globe? How did they achieve this level of domination, of dominance? They achieved it step by step, incrementally, over centuries. Even before the US became a nation, the process was already in place, it was already in motion. So we know it all starts with Columbus discovering the Caribbean region, imagining that he's in India, right? It all begins with that. The Spaniards make the first moves, but eventually, by the 1600s, the English start entering the fray, and between the 1600s, early 1600s, all the way to the late 19th century, there are these endless American-Indian wars. The European occupiers trying to wipe out the natives, right? There is this King Philip's War, late 17th century, second half of the 17th century, in which there is major warfare. Then in what, 1775 to the 1780s, there's the American War of Independence, in which America becomes independent of England, but it still is a small geographical area. So if you want to see the map of the US, okay, let's see. Map of the US in 1783. USA map 1783. Let's take a look at what the US looked like in 1783. You see this green portion? That's all it was. That's all it was. So if you are a nation that occupies the green portion that you see there, you are not a major power. You are nowhere close to being a major power. So what does the US do? Right? So 1783, they win the War of Independence. They become independent of the UK. In 1803, the Americans purchased Louisiana. The Louisiana Purchase from the French First Republic. What was it? Yeah, from Napoleon. And then we have the situation where they control a much larger territory. Louisiana Purchase. Let's see. So this is the Louisiana Purchase, the area in green. Massive territory that they purchase, and they more than double in size. And then they go further west, killing more Indians, genociding and displacing more Indians. I mean, the Native Americans, who they called Indians at the time. So the Indian removal, it really took off in the second quarter of the 19th century, between 1830 to 1850. Around that time, there was ethnic cleansing, there was genocide. The Native Americans were forced to go on these extremely long marches, death marches. The objective is not to go from point A to point B. The objective is to kill off the population by making them walk such large distances. That's what it was. So there was the Indian removal. You had the Trail of Tears, 1830 to 1850, thereabouts. Yeah, ethnic cleansing, genocide, mass murder. That's what it was. Then there is the Alaska Purchase in the second half of the 19th century. The president was Andrew Johnson, and the Secretary of State was William Seward. And the purchase of Alaska from Russia was considered to be crazy. It was called Seward's Folly. But it made a lot of sense if you look at things today. Alaska is so rich in resources, and it's such a vast territory for the US to own. So they keep on expanding. Eventually they take control of the entire coast-to-coast area that the present-day United States has. They go to war with Mexico, and they take over California and Colorado and so much more. Right, half of Mexico, essentially, or roughly, almost, they take over. They keep expanding the territory. And by around 1900, they have this gigantic territory that's continent-sized, and it's an autarky. All the resources you can imagine that you could wish to have, you have it. Then Second World War, the US participates. 1944, you have the Bretton Woods situation, where the US dollar is made the global dominant currency, the reserve currency in the world. And then the rest of the history, So that's how the US did it, from the 1600s all the way till today. And now they will expand into space. That's how you do it. You need to have huge ambition. You need to have a huge appetite for risk. And that's how you become a superpower, not through action, not through slogans, through massive action and by taking massive risks. And by having the the ability to stomach big losses, right? That's what you need. That's how the US has become what it has become.